So happy to see you guys here today on Promote, Pop, Profit, Publish. And I want to remind you before we start talking to our guest today, which I'm really excited about, to go over to the www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com and find out where your skills lie with monetizing your genius today and not waiting until your book's published. So our guest today is someone I've had on here before, but it's that time of the year again when we really have to start thinking about what are we going to do for 2019. And Penny Zenker is an international speaker, business strategy coach, and best-selling author. Before her 31st birthday, Penny founded, developed, and sold her first multi-million-dollar business. Later, she managed business unit turnarounds and was a Tony Robbins business coach. Penny is one of America's leading experts in the psychology of productivity to eliminate distraction, perfectionism, and self-sabotage to maximize results in every area of your life. Over the past 2 decades, and wait till you see her, she doesn't look like she's been around for 2 decades.
Yeah, I'm only 33.
She has coached thousands of entrepreneurs, executives, and business leaders to do the same. Penny's book, which we're going to talk a little bit about, The Productivity Zone, was an instant Amazon bestseller, and her TEDx, self-promotion.
Plug, sorry.
Of thought has gained attention around the world. Her engaging, inspiring, interactive talks teach people to think and act more strategically. Penny's also been featured, besides here on this podcast, on NBC News, Forbes, Inc., ESPN, and the Wharton Business Radio, among others. So welcome, Penny. You want to hold up?
Thank you. Woo! Right? Where's the drum roll?
I have to ask, why ESPN?
You know, it was funny. It was actually a fishing show, and they wanted to talk about how they could have more time to fish because they make all these plans like we all do to make, you know, these great vacations, and they never come to fruition. So they asked me to be on the show to talk about how to help people be more productive in their lives so they can fish more. So that was my ESPN debut.
That is hysterical. I thought that perhaps you were able to allow them to productively fish, actually get more fish when they go out, but apparently.
No, I don't do that. So, but by helping them to think and act more strategically on the other part of their life, they can make more time and make more room for the things that they absolutely love to do.
Well, that's awesome. So for a lot of these people out here who are listening, they probably have never heard of a productivity mentor. What exactly do you do?
Well, exactly depends on the person, but I think the gist of it is that I help people to think and act more strategically. So, what does that mean exactly is that, 98% of the population gets caught up in the minutia, in the detail, in the busy, right? And so we're not conscious of all the choices that we're making and being purposeful so that we can be productive. And productive doesn't just mean doing more, right? It means being, that age-old saying, working smarter, not harder. So like for those fishing people, it's taking a look at where are they getting stuck? Where are they wasting time? What is more strategic for them to focus on? So really strategic focus so that they have more time to do the things that are most important to them. And for an entrepreneur, for instance, it might give them more time in the sales arena because they're spending way too much time on things that don't grow their business and don't really matter at the end of the day. So, for each individual, depending on where they're coming from, it might be just shifting their focus wherever it might be based on their goal set.
That's really great. And I know relating that back to the business I'm in, a lot of people will spend their time developing content versus actually doing the things that will monetize them. So that's huge for you to be able to get them out of that zone and doing the things, because I think a lot of people hate sales, so they'll do anything to avoid it. But it's a necessity for us as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I don't know why they hate sales. That's what our businesses are. We're supposed to make profit. Like you go in and ask somebody, what are you in business for? Right. They can come up with all these things, but that's all great. But we also, that's one of the things that we need to make profit in our business for it to, to pay us our salaries and pay other people their bills, and then to, to add value. If we're not making profit, we're really not adding value in the marketplace, because we can't do any research and development, right? We can't innovate. Like, there's so many things that we can't do for our customer if we're not a healthy, profitable company.
So very true. And I might add, if you're not a profitable company, you might not really be a company.
Oh, true. You have a nice hobby, right?
Yes,
it's not
exactly a really great hobby. So can you paint, and I know you said that that people are kind of all over the place, everybody's different. What would a typical productive entrepreneur look like?
Well, it starts with, and it is a very difficult question to answer, right? Because it starts with, what is the entrepreneur's goal, right? So, because where they're going to focus is going to depend on what their goal is. So somebody might be looking to create a completely online business so that it's complete residual income, right? Somebody else might want to build a product so that they can then sell their business at a later time, whereas someone else might want a lifestyle business. So it really starts with understanding first what their goal is for their business. And I know that seems obvious, but a lot of people don't actually spend the time to identify, what do they want this business to be. And if you don't, like, if you ever think you might want to sell your business, there are so many things you need to do in the beginning in order to set yourself up for success there. And if you don't, it's a lot harder, and it takes longer, and it's more painful to do it later. So it's a good idea to think of that first. And it goes back to what I said earlier. The productive entrepreneur is the entrepreneur that knows that they're not a lone wolf. They can't do everything themselves. So they set themselves up with a fantastic team, whether it's outsourced and or whether it's insourced, right? And that all decision making depends on a number of different things. And they put processes in place to automate where possible, and that they're proactively looking at that, and that they're also focusing their time on what grows the business and really moves the business forward. And then they delegate everything else. That's what a successful, productive entrepreneur looks like. You can call productive and successful a little bit synonymous. When you're productive, then what I call it is you're efficient and effective. And that means that you're successful. You've got some balance in your life, and at the same time you're making money, and everything is good. It's not perfect, because it's not meant to be perfect, but it's meant to be moving forward and growing all the time, personally and professionally.
Yeah, I agree. And you and I are both CEO Space members. And I actually, we were sitting, I don't know if you were there, but we were sitting in one of the mentors' talks, and he was talking about exit strategies. And there was a whole row of people that were talking about, they've never even thought about an exit strategy for their business. So it's good that you brought that up, because you have to know what your end goal is. In your intro, you talk a little bit about the sabotage of perfectionism. Would you talk about that? Because I see that a lot.
Wait a minute. Are you insinuating something?
I'm insinuating something here. Not for me, of course.
No, for me. No, I'm teasing, because that's my, I think we all have, basically in my book, I talk about the productivity zone. And it's a bell curve, if you will, but not with statistical deviation or anything like that, just from a picture perspective. And on the right-hand side, if you're looking at it, you have over-functioning, which is perfectionism. And on the other side, you have procrastination, which is under-functioning. And if we looked at it really, really simply, right, because sometimes we make things way more complex than they need to be, we're either in the zone or some shape or form in the zone, or we're out of the zone and we're over-functioning or under-functioning. And so procrastination is my challenge, right? It's not really not doing things. It's over analyzing or trying to make something, to the nth degree of what it really needs to be. So self-sabotage is when, why do we do stuff like that, right? It's because we're fear of being judged. What are people going to think? You work with a lot of authors. My book, I must have gone through easily 50 iterations of my book. And I could have continued going had I not set a very clear date and publicized it so I couldn't go back, right? I burned the boats and I publicized it, and I'm publishing it on my birthday, 2015. And so I had to work my way backwards and say, what's good enough? And that's, I think that's a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that we're driven. And so, and we want to be great at customer service. So maybe we over service our customers, right? Maybe we overdo a number of things. And then it gets us into trouble where we end up overworking because of it. We end up, stressed out, and actually it doesn't do, if we have employees, what I managed to do was burn out all of my employees, right? Where I had these really high expectations, right? There you go. Really high expectations, and nobody could meet it. So then they felt less than, and then they went to the opposite side. So then they went to apathy, and they went to procrastination. Like, wow, what the heck? She's going to come back and she's going to reorganize it and redo it. So I had to learn the hard way, because I was trying to be that lone wolf. Even though I had people, I was still, wolfing. I needed to let go, and I needed to identify what was good enough. I'm not a brain surgeon. What I do, I don't need to make sure, like what I tell people now is, hey, did you see any mistakes in my book? They're like, yeah. And I was like, well, did it keep you from understanding the purpose? I mean, I had 3 different people look at it, right? I could have gone on and on. I could have made things better, described, but there's a point where it's not a value anymore. Mm-hmm. And that is, where self-sabotage comes in, is when we continue to go into that cycle of stress of overdoing it for insecurity or whatever reasons we do it.
Absolutely. And I think what I see both of those on the opposite end with authors, people who run into writer's block. And then the other end is people who've been telling me for 5 years that I'm still on chapter 1.
Right.
Get the darn thing out. That's what rewrites are for.
Right.
Yeah. So I think I see a lot of both ends of that spectrum on there. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
So my book is structured around that. Here it is. I'll plug it again. Woohoo! It's structured around that framework. So I explain the framework, and then I talk a little bit about procrastination and perfectionism. And then, what people really want to know is what's in the zone. So, but I do always start with what's outside of the zone, because, we all know it's not like they're going to read this and they're going to hear like something, drastically different than some of the other things that they've heard in their life, right? About good practices. Mm-hmm. I'm presenting it in a different way. So hopefully, in some of the tips and stories that then might hit them so that they can apply it to themselves. But we know what to do a lot or most of the time, but we don't do it. Mm-hmm. And so, I always feel that we have to address that first. We have to address what's in the way, so that when I give you a strategy and I give you things to focus on, that actually, you're going to be able to take advantage of that. And that's the way I coach people too, back to that question that you said of how to, what does a productivity coach do, is we look what's in the way as well. So the book talks about that, and then goes into the 10 core drivers of what I would call the drivers of productivity, but they're really drivers of success in any area of your life, because it balances the mindset, the strategies, and then the sustainability. And so it works in that order. You start with the mindset, and then you move on to build strategies on top of that. And then you put things in place to make them sustainable.
Cool. What's the biggest thing it's just some of the biggest things that you think keep people from being productive?
Right. Well, it is those procrastination and perfectionism. And what I say both of those are, they're distractions, right? They're distractions that keep us from our focus. And so it's distractions. I recently, whether it's email, that I recently saw a study that said we check our email on average 155 times a day. Like,
really? Wow.
And that we are distracted every 45 seconds was the latest. I saw a TED Talk that was recently published that said that. I think it was 155 times a day that we're interrupted from what we're doing. And, most people feel that way. Like I feel that way sometimes, and I really have to work at not being busy and not being distracted and blocking those things out and really staying focused on my, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and then focusing on the blocks of time. And so, and I would love to offer your group, anybody who wants to go and take a distraction quiz. I know you love quizzes, right? So at distractionquiz.com, they can go and see how they're being mostly distracted. And I break it out into a couple of different areas too, so that they can see not just some of the things, but also the 3 categories that distract us, which are, we don't just have the physical distractions, right, in our environment, physical is in our body, then we have environmental that come in our environment, and then we've got the biggest ones, which are our mental distractions. And by bucketing them, we get much clearer. And then once we are aware of them, then we make more of a conscious choice to block them out versus, just unconsciously let them happen.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking I work out of my home a lot, and I can really tell when I'm having a distraction day, when I'd rather do laundry and unload the dishwasher than work.
Yeah.
And those are not really high forms of distraction. Those should be really low on the list.
Well, they do need to get done as well, but right, it's having the right balance of getting those things done that you need and want to get done, as well as some of those things that just have to get done.
They get in the way. I would imagine, you mentioned email. I would imagine social media is a big one too, that people are constantly jumping on and off of social media.
Yeah, totally. Right. And part of the challenge with social media is that when they jump on, they're there way longer than they think. Right. So, a quick little tip around that is set a timer, like go there for a specific purpose, but also set a timer so that in case you do get sucked into that rabbit hole, that okay, it's only 10 minutes that you're going to be on there, and then you're off. And the other thing that I've actually recently realized, the drain that it is on me, and then I think also it was a study that I read, is that, when we check Facebook and social media in between whatever it is that we're doing, when we're waiting in line or waiting at the stoplight, you do it too. Don't pretend like you don't.
I do not do it while I'm driving.
I don't mean you. I mean whoever's listening, right? It might not be you, but you as in the proverbial you out there, somebody, I know, because when I pull up, the person next to me is on their phone.
I know.
But what it does is that we don't have any time to make interesting connections. So it's that time when we don't have anything to do, right? Mm-hmm. That is when we connect something that we see with something that we're doing in our lives, right? Like some of the best ideas that I've had are because, like the McDonald's drive-through did not come from fast food. It came from banking. And I forget who it was, somebody from McDonald's. I don't think it was Ray Kroc, but somebody went through and was just going about their day, not sitting there at every break on their phone, but just looking around and observing and soaking in, and then connections happen, right? And that was a connection where he goes, wow, we should do that. That's pretty cool. We could do a drive-through. So, we need to free our brains a little bit of always doing, because for me, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I've recognized that it's a disconnection. So by always doing, it actually disconnects me rather than connects me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. In fact, you can pretend you're not old enough to remember this, but remember the days when we actually didn't have phones? Like we had to wait till we got home and turn on the answering machine, and we didn't have all of this going on at all.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea how. I don't know how anyone my age survived that era, and how even kids could understand that today.
Well, I think that's why people were less stressed out then, because ignorance is bliss. Like we didn't know who called until we got home, right? And listened to the answering machine, or we didn't miss anything because we didn't hear the phone ring or see that we had 5 missed calls. Like all of that goes into our the whole fear of missing out, and like it psychologically is really not good for us. And we have a more stressed out culture than ever, right? The World Health Organization has declared stress a worldwide epidemic. And I absolutely believe that this always on, always doing plays a role in that.
I would agree with that. For those of you out there who've ever taken like a detox weekend and gone camping, or just some place where you've turned the electronics off, you may have felt like the first 24 hours of it is like you need to go to Betty Ford. Like, oh my God, is there like an addiction clinic for electronics? It's really, I think it's even more stressful because you're like thinking about what you're missing. You're thinking, I miss the hand movements. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my hands now?
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on 2019. What are some of the things that entrepreneurs should be doing now to get ready to change the habits and start new in 2019 with some really fresh, clean habits that'll make them more productive than ever?
Awesome. All right. So first of all, they're coming into the new year. So November, is a great time to start planning for the new year. Why wait until the new year to plan for the new year, right? Is get a leg up on that and start to plan for what you want that new year to be, and set your goals, in a quarterly type of basis and then a monthly basis, right? And break them down so that you can see what you're going to achieve at the end of the year, and you break it down into those small steps. I'm a firm believer that it's all about, and my book talks about this, the energy that we bring to the time. It's not just what we do with our time. So it's time to take a news detox. So that means that for the new year, stop watching the news in the morning. I'm not saying stop watching it altogether. That's what I do, but that's for me. That's, everybody gets to make their own choice. But when we fill our minds in the morning with negativity and aggression, then that's what we're going to experience for most of the day. So, a simple productivity tip is to start the morning with some gratitude, with a meditation. And, this is not like, some people think, oh, that's woo-woo. This is scientifically proven. I forget the last statistic. I think it was over 40% of Fortune 100 companies are integrating some form of wellness and meditation into their teachings, because they're seeing that it's giving them back productivity from their staff. Mm-hmm. So those are some tips I would, it all depends on where somebody is, right? And so I think one of the things I would also say for 2019 is to give yourself a break as well. Be more forgiving of yourself. Because I recently read Kelly McGonigal. I love some of her work. She has a book on willpower and also on the upside of stress. I highly recommend it to people. And in the willpower book, she was talking about how we have these go-tos when we're stressed, which is, we procrastinate. So maybe some people clean, right? So they want to clean to procrastinate, and at least they get a clean home, right? And you're doing your laundry and things like that. And apparently, or somebody eats, right? They'll go for chocolate. And apparently, like, what happens is that this is a vicious cycle. So it's scientifically proven that even if you don't even like chocolate cake, for instance, that you're more apt to go for the chocolate cake when you're stressed, because you think it's a reward, right? It's a go-to stressor. And then when you beat yourself up because you ate the chocolate cake, not saying anybody here does that, but then you beat yourself up for not doing what was on your scheduled list. It can be in any context. You have this go-to behavior that's your stress behavior. It triggers you, and then you do that behavior. And then when we beat ourselves up, we do it again. So we go to that stress behavior again, because it's like Pavlov, right? We're just going back to that behavior, even though it doesn't make any sense. I eat the cake, I beat myself about the cake, I have another piece of cake. Well, so when we make excuses, oh, it doesn't matter, I already blew my diet. Oh, I hate myself, I blew my diet, never again. We go to the binge and restrict, and then we go back and we go, okay, just this once, it'll be okay. And then we do it because I'm stressed and I need a reward. So once we're forgiving, so actually this was what she found, is that when we let go of it and we forgive ourselves, instead of beating ourselves up, that we break that pattern of behavior. And by breaking it, it means that we're going to then have more productive behaviors by simply being more kind to ourselves, more loving, more understanding, and more forgiving. And by the way, and I know this sounds weird, right? This is coming from a productivity person, but like I said, it's mindset as well as it is the skills. You'll be more apt to take on new skills when you're not beating yourself up for not getting it 100% perfect. Oh, I got this new app and I implemented it, and then I beat myself up because I only did it for a week. And then I didn't do it anymore. And then I beat myself up. And then, oh, I'll just get another app because the app was the problem, right? So then your behavior becomes constantly getting a new app and starting something new versus forgiving yourself and then saying, hey, let me recognize, that's another thing that you can do for 2019. Let me recognize the progress that I did make.
Uh-huh.
So here's what I did do. I did use the app, and here's the value that I got from it. And here's what I can do next week to implement it even more consistently or to build on what I started. Give yourself an acclimation period and be forgiving of, of what you're not accomplishing and appreciate what you are accomplishing.
Very good. Thank you so much. So tell us where we can find your book, please.
Well, you can find my book on Amazon. So it's available in, written format here, ebook, and physical format, as well as Audible. And then go to distractionquiz.com and find out, what your biggest distractions are, because really, most people, they can eliminate most of those distractions themselves. So it can make you, right in itself, another 25% more productive. Like, what could you do with that time? 25, 50% more productive.
And we all want more time.
Yeah, totally. So distractionquiz.com, go check that out. And, my other websites are p10app.com and pennieskeynote.com.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for being on today. We appreciate having you here. And hopefully you guys will be able to use all those tips going into a brand new year and create some really great productivity habits for yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.